Okay, this is now the tarot lesson number 6, and the first bit, I want to tell you something first, and it might revolutionize the way you think and the way you understand cards and what we're doing with cards. So, years ago, somebody said to me I was studying astrology at the time and trying to teach myself, but you can't. And that's the problem. You can't teach yourself astrology. And you can't learn that much from people who taught themselves. But anyway, so I asked this person who was teaching me at the time, was this a good book? An astrology book, I forget which one. And she said to me, you can learn as much from a bad book as you can from a good one. So it depends on how you deal with the information, or how you handle it, or what understanding you bring to the information that you get from that particular book. So, and maybe one thing I was thinking about was maybe what you do with a good book, you add; with a bad book, so-called, you subtract. So maybe, because you get 3 and 4 is 7. But if you take 13 from 20, you get 7 as well. So there are different ways of arriving at the number 7, for instance, if 7 is the correct answer. So it has to do with, it's not the book that's good or bad. It's what you do with the information, or how you handle or relate to the information that's in the book. That's what's important. So if we expand on that idea, it can make us think. We think about some experiences are good and some are bad, some are pleasant and more enjoyable than others. But is there any such thing as a bad experience? That may sound ridiculous, but if it's not the book being good or bad that's important, it's how we handle the situation, or how we handle the content. And in the same way, to what extent is it true that it's not the experience that we have that's good or bad that's important? It's how we handle, or how we interpret, or what we do with the experience itself. So maybe it doesn't matter what happens ultimately. I mean, again, some things are more pleasant than others. It's more pleasant to eat ice cream than to go to the dentist, for instance. But if you're looking at the experience that you're having, and in the same way, you read the book and you think, okay, what am I meant to learn from this? What value can I get out of it? What value can I extract from the contents of this bad book? And in the same way, I'm having a good experience or a bad experience. What value can I get out of it? What can I learn from it? So I think what we can then do is we can look at a card. We can pick a card at random. There's justice reversed. I mean, the camera's up there, so it looks reversed from that point of view. So we can turn a card. We can do fortune telling, or we can do lesson building or understanding building, something like that. So there are different ways of looking at this particular card. So if we're doing fortune telling, which we ought to be able to do, or we ought to learn to do it as well. And the thing is, I was thinking about fortune telling. Somehow it's got a bad reputation, but the world is run by fortune tellers. If you think of it, doctors are fortune tellers. They're always making predictions. Economists are fortune tellers. They're always making predictions, most of which are wrong or turn out to be wrong. Politicians are always making predictions. You do this, this is going to happen, and it doesn't. So, in a lot of ways, if you act as a fortune teller, you're just being normal. So we turn the justice card and think, okay, how do we interpret this as fortune telling? And we say things like, don't go to court. Okay, the fortune telling could be, okay, you're going to get involved in a lawsuit and you're going to go to court and you're going to lose. So you're better to settle out of court. as an example, because it's justice, and that can make us think of the law courts and the law. Or else we're going to say something like, you're going to do something that is going to turn out to be stupid or a mistake because you don't take time to see the whole picture, right? Because there's two pillars, but there's a curtain hanging between them, so we can see what's in the front, but we can't see what's behind the surface or behind the scenes. And so you're going to do something that you'll later regret because you took action before you had all the facts, or you took action on the spur of the moment. You just did it without thinking. And so that's what I'm predicting, that's your future. Okay, so that's one way of looking at the justice card. Whereas if we look at it from the point, remember the good book, bad book, and what do we learn from it? So we look at the justice card. You can look at that same card and somebody says, tell me my future. And you talk to them about the lesson that they're about to learn. And so we've got the sword. The sword is action in the right hand, and the right hand is the present. The scales are balanced in the left. So when you're faced with anything, find balance first. So find balance first and then take action. If you rush in or do something without proper or adequate preparation, you're going to regret it because it's not going to turn out the way you want, or it's not going to turn out well for you. And you're going to have to deal with repercussions and consequences just because you rushed and because you took the chance to get it done before you figured it out, or before you had a long-term plan or a long-term goal, or before you took the time to see how becoming involved with this project or that project was a good idea given what it is that you want to accomplish in the future. So we can look at a card as fortune telling or as a lesson to be learned. And so if we look at one other card, sword again, two of swords. So what's my future? And you do a prediction. With the two of swords, you're going to sit there and not know what to do. You're going to be undecided because you can go left, you could go right. You could take the offer, you could refuse the offer. You're going to want to take action because there's a sword in your hand, but you're not going to be able to do it because you just can't make up your mind. And that's you. That's how you're built. I don't know, you can sort of expand upon that. Whereas if we look at this two of swords, what's the lesson to be learned? Maybe the lesson to be learned is sit, because the person's sitting, rather than when you feel the need to take action, because we're looking at swords here, or when you're dealing with a difficult situation, remembering from last time that swords represents hardship, conflict, and strife. So if you're facing hardship, if you're facing conflict, if you're facing a situation where you're going to have to battle, then sit and think it through first. Look at both sides of the situation. If you do this, what's going to happen? If you do the other thing, what's going to happen? And then you make a decision about which is better, or which is less painful, or which is likely to be less painful. Then you'll make the correct decision. But if you rush to judgment, an expression that people sometimes use, you're probably going to regret it. You're going to want to rush to judgment. And whereas the lesson, let's say, is don't do anything immediately. Wait. Think about it. Examine the situation. And maybe ask around and see what else is involved or what could be done. And then you handle the situation well. And again, if somebody has a question, will I get promotion? Think it through first. Do you really want it? What should I go out with this person? Well, what do they like? What do you know about them already? Is that your type of person? Or are they new? And so if it's a new kind of person, then you're going to have to learn new things or put up with different behavior. Whereas if it's the same type of person, same kind of person you would normally go out with, then Maybe it's going to be ordinary and run-of-the-mill, which may or may not suit you. So again, the lesson we would talk about, or the experience that could be gained that we talk about, depends on the question that was asked. So anyway, you might want to think about that for a card. When somebody has a question, you can do fortune telling and you can do lesson learning. And maybe we do both. So you talk about the fortune telling aspect first, do a prediction if it's about the future, do a prediction, and then talk about maybe a more sophisticated way that they could handle the situation. Okay, that was lesson number 6. So today's Wednesday, so Thursday, Friday. I'll see you on Saturday if you're following along. And thank you very much and have a good day. Okay, bye-bye.